Hi, this is Miss Linton, and this is my wonderful Period 3 AP Biology class. Say hey. Hey. All right, so you already had the ed puzzle that you did, so you should have already talked about or have some notes on extracellular and intracellular digestion. Yes? Yes. Okay, which one is more advanced? Extracellular. Okay, doing your digestion elsewhere, getting it down into small monomers. Oh, and let me just take a pause. Is this one of the 3 mandatory systems? No. What are the 3 mandatory systems you have to know? Immune system, endocrine, and nervous. Okay. So what we're looking for in this chapter are examples to support maybe other topics. Things like what? Homeostasis. Things how structure meets function. Good. These are the things you want to pull out from here. Also, we will see some of the different organs in here where we have crossover between, like, say, the pancreas is involved in the endocrine system and as hormones, and the exocrine for digestion. So we want to visit on those as well. Okay, so extracellular, intracellular digestion. Extracellular is more adaptive. We talked about incomplete digestive tracts and complete. What's the difference between incomplete and a complete one? One opening, whereas if you have an indoor and an outdoor, that would be a complete digestive tract or alimentary canal. We talked about continuous and discontinuous feeders. What would be more adaptive, continuous or discontinuous? Discontinuous. Because, and to be a discontinuous feeder, you have to have a way to what your food? Store your food. What do we use? Stomach. How is that an adaptation to have a stomach? When I store the food, why is that adaptive? Why was that more evolved? So, you do other activities. You don't have to, stay docked to your feeding, right? You can go and do other things as well. All right. And then we talked about different types, herbivore, omnivores, carnivores. What are you? Omnivore. You can choose to be a vegetarian. Are you biologically built to be a vegetarian? No, you're not. Your body is adapted to eat both meat and plant products. Okay, I can tell by 2 reasons. Your dentition, which is referring to your teeth, and the length of your intestines. Because you need much longer intestines for digestion to adequately digest plant material. Also, we don't have the ability to digest cellulose, so we really have to focus, if you're a plant-based eater, on really doing, and there's 2 kinds of digestion. What are the 2 types? Mechanical and chemical, right? So mechanical, besides teeth, what else could you use for mechanical digestion? Stomach. Good, but what in the stomach? Muscles, yeah. Or you could be like an earthworm, and they swallow rocks, so do birds, because birds don't have teeth, right? Swallow rocks, and then use muscles on the rocks on your food. And that would grind, like the gizzard grinds in the earthworm. So it pushes rocks against the food to mechanically digest it. So here's mechanical digestion. And then chemical digestion, you're getting it down into the monomers. What are the monomers? Yes, sugars. Go ahead, give me another one. Amino acids, sugars, amino acids. What else?
Glycerol, fatty acids.
Glycerol, fatty acids. Nucleotides, good. Now, what are your walls of your, or I shouldn't have said walls. Well, walls of your intestines are made out of cells, yes? Yes. Those cells, what do they have going around the outside of them? Phospholipid bilayer. So do we have to completely digest fats? No, we don't, because it can move through the phospholipid bilayer. Along that line, I want you to think about your small intestine. What is an adaptation your small intestines have? Microvilli, which increases the spore absorption. And within those villi, you learn this because we already learned the immune system, right? What do you have inside the villi? Starts with an L. No, lacteals. Okay? So the lacteals within the microvilli, they will absorb the fats. So whereas you have a capillary bed surrounding these lacteals, they're like kind of side by side. So where your sugars and your proteins get absorbed into your capillaries, the fats will get absorbed into your lymphatic system, and then they become what's called lipoproteins, because your plasma, right, your blood, Plasma is mostly what? Water. Okay, and what else is dissolved in that water? Gases, nutrients, protein, salts, nitrogenous waste, hormones, vitamins. Good. Fats don't mix well with water, right? Because they're a what kind of substance? Hydrophobic. And because they, I knew you meant that. Hydrophobic, and they are non-polar, right? So they don't dissolve in the liquid medium, okay? So as a result of that, they have to be packaged with a protein so that they can have a hydrophilic region so they can move through and be in and dissolved with water. Otherwise, you'd have fat precipitating out of your blood, right? So your lymphatic system is going to assist in that and then drop it off with the rest of the lymph at your, primarily your left subclavian vein. Okay? So that's how it's going to get in. So chemical and mechanical digestion. If we talk about, there's, you know, different types of teeth, you already went over that, you know, and what they eat. I just like that picture. Okay, so back here. So we do extracellular digestion. We put, remember our tube within a tube? This is the center tube that's in our coelom, our tube, right? Tube within a tube. And our digestive tract right here, we throw digestive enzymes in there, and then we do extracellular digestion, and once it's digested, then we can absorb it. Where do we do the bulk of our digestion and absorption? Small intestines, yeah. Our mouth is specialized for one kind of chemical digestion. It mechanically digests all food, okay? But it chemically digests one food in your mouth. You know what it is? Starch, carbohydrates, yeah. That's the only thing that's digested in your mouth is you begin the digestion of carbohydrates. And what it will get it down into is usually maltose. Do you remember what maltose is? It's a disaccharide. Two what? Two glucose molecules. Perfect. Okay. Then it goes down your esophagus, right? Your esophagus. Is there any digestion in your esophagus? No. But what do you call the wave-like contractions of your esophagus? Starts with a P. This is a word, peristalsis. Boom shakalaka. Peristalsis. And that is also of your intestines as well. Is this smooth wave-like contraction, so you could eat upside down, you know, in case that needed to happen. And then it moves through. Hey, Coach.
Hey.
Do you have something for me?
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yay! Thank you. Sorry, I shop at Nike. Thank you.
All right on.
Should I get this time 30% off? Yeah. Okay. Friends and family. All right. So moves through the esophagus and then it goes into your stomach. Your stomach has two sphincters on either side. Your cardiac sphincter and your pyloric sphincter. And the reason is your stomach churns. And if you didn't have those sphincters, if they were permanently open, what would happen as the stomach churned? Squirt, 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 right? It would squirt back up onto your esophagus and into your small intestines before it was ready. So what happens is when that wave-like contraction of peristalsis hits your cardiac sphincter, the sphincter opens, food drops down into your stomach, and then it closes. Now what can happen is you could have a weak sphincter. So as the stomach is churning, it could splash back on your esophageal wall. And when it does that, there is no mucus in there like you have in your stomach. And so it will burn your esophageal wall. What do they call that?
Ulcers.
Oh, yeah, it could be, but that's just commonly called heartburn. Yeah, if it's an ulcer, you have a sore. And it could be due usually to a virus that will do that, creating a sore. And that's when it goes all the way down into your capillary bed. It just will burn on your esophagus. And so people call it heartburn because the junction of the esophagus and your stomach is right behind your heart. And so people think they're having a heart attack, so really it's just heartburn. Okay. She was wearing cologne. Oh, I'm wearing cologne. So now when it will stay for a few hours in your stomach before it'll move on to your small intestines. Oh, do you know what chemically gets digested in your stomach? Only one thing. One thing only. Protein. And here's something to know. There is a special place for everything. In your mouth, only what? Carbs. In your stomach, only proteins. Okay? There is an enzyme, and these are like adaptations you want to think about because you do need to know about enzymes, right? Not enzymes like you have to memorize them for the test, but the idea of enzymes and how enzymes function, that you have to be familiar with. So in your stomach, you digest proteins, and you use an enzyme called pepsin. So how do you store pepsin how do you store it in the wall? If it digests proteins in the wall of the stomach is protein, how do you store it? How would you not digest your stomach? Mucus protects the interior lining of your stomach. There you have a pyloric gland that secretes mucus. But how do you store pepsin until you need it? Guesses? Pepsinogen, you reading that? Yeah. Pepsinogen is an inactive precursor. The inactive precursor will not digest your stomach walls. When pepsinogen is secreted into your stomach, you have other gastric glands that will secrete a low pH, and you know enzymes work at a specific what? Temperature and pH. So it changes pepsinogen into pepsin, and it now becomes activated. So you store an inactive, it's called a zymogen when it's an inactive form of it, and you secrete it out there, and then low pH, now it's active, it's pepsin, it can digest protein. And that's how you can do that. So that's another really good example, okay, of enzyme regulation. You're not turned on until you have the right environment. So that would be a good one to use as an example. Okay, when you leave your stomach and you go into your small intestines, we've had a special place for carbs, we've had a special place for proteins. What else do we need? Fat. Your liver has multiple functions, okay? And this is one of those organs that's so important for homeostasis. You find your liver. Oh, here's ulcers. We were talking about ulcers. Okay. So your liver has multiple functions, and Slate, why don't you go over them as I create them? All right, so your liver will form bile. So here's some other, under the produces bile. Bile is like green. If you've ever been sick and you're doing, to the point where you're doing dry heaves and like, you know, and something green and slimy comes out, that is bile. Okay? And what it does is bile emulsifies fat. It kind of acts like Dawn dishwashing soap and breaks it into smaller fat pieces. It's a form of chemical mechanical digestion. Slate, explain that. Chemical mechanical digestion. Explain that. So mechanical digestion makes it into what? Smaller pieces. So this is using a chemical to make it into smaller pieces. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so it's not digesting fat, okay? But it is making it into smaller pieces so it is more readily worked on by enzymes or just straight up absorbed because fat dissolves into fat, okay? So that's bile. So now we have special place for everybody. Carbs in the mouth, stomach makes pepsin for proteins, and then the liver makes bile. Your pancreas, really critical organ for homeostasis. Your pancreas is a playa, okay? It is both an exocrine gland and an endocrine gland. as an endocrine gland, that's one of our have-to knows, so you can just learn it right now, and it's in your notes. As an endocrine gland, there are little pockets in the pancreas called islets of Langerhans. And those little mini islands, okay, inside the pancreas, they will make, there are alpha and beta cells in there. And the beta cells secrete insulin. You already know this. What does insulin do? It lowers blood sugar. Okay, and the alpha cells secrete glucagon, and glucagon raises blood sugar level. I think glucose on, not glucose gone, but glucose on. Okay, and between those two, there are contradictory hormones. You can keep your blood sugar level just right. Now, who helps take care of storing excess, like the actual act of storing the sugar? Who does that? Liver, and it stores it as glycogen. And if your liver's all full up, then you store it as fat. Okay, good. Now, so that's how it acts as an endocrine gland with these little islets of Langerhans. But I'm sure you don't have to say it like that, but I just like to. The other part of it acts as an exocrine gland, and this is where I say he's a player. He makes digestive enzymes for everything. He makes trypsin, chymotrypsin, which both, again, I just like to say it like that, both digest proteins. They all sound pepsin, trypsin, chymotrypsin. Those are all protein-based. It also makes pancreatic amylase. What do you think that digests? Starch, carbs, good. And then it makes lipase. What does lipase sound like? Lipids. And it will digest lipids down into glycerol and fatty acids. Okay, so that's why the pancreas is a major player in homeostasis. Now, I don't know the steps per se of cancer in the pancreas, but I do know this. If somebody gets pancreatic cancer, do you know about how long they have to live? 4 to 5 months usually, depending on when they figure out that you actually have pancreatic cancer. And people stop getting hungry. They can't understand. They'll lose weight. Does it make sense now that you know what the functions of the pancreas are, right? And then Michael knows this, but I spent yesterday at Amgen, and it was very, very interesting. And one of the things, I've been in this lab before, it's super cool. You wear glasses in this one room, and it shows you 3D imaging, and it's part of their how they begin the research on a drug and drug rollout. And you know what he had on the screen, this guy? P53 protein. What do you know about P53? Yeah. Now, hang on, I'm just going to pause this for a minute. So, anyway, back to the pancreas. So it secretes then these 3 different enzymes, and then this brings us to this part, which is important because this links back to what we know about passive and active transport. And this is a part that's blown up on your notes, okay? It's not mini-me notes, okay? So you can see carbohydrates here, pancreatic amylase, and then maltase. That makes sense. Maltase would digest maltose. Now, you know this got started before the pancreas. Where did this get started in? Mouth. And then you can actively transport glucose. Remember how we talked about like co-transport to make glucose move? Because you want to concentrate it to one side of the blood. You don't want even Steven amounts of glucose. You want to get all of it, right? And so that goes in your blood capillary. Here you can see trypsin. You know trypsin comes from the pancreas. Chymotrypsin comes from there as well. Pepsin in the stomach, right? And you get it down to amino acids using peptidases. Peptidase, what do you hear in that? Peptides, right? Those come from the small intestines. I put small intestines in green and pancreas in yellow. And again, active transport, get it in your blood supply. Here, notice there's a difference. Blood capillary, and then what does it say? Lymphatic capillary. These are the lacteals in your villi of your intestines. And here you can see bile salts and then lipase from the pancreas. And you don't have to digest it all the way down, and you can absorb it. But it's much easier to absorb the fats because fats will dissolve into fats. Okay, and here are some microvilli. Here's your large intestines. Large intestines, the main thing there is there's bacteria that live in there. This is an adaptation. They produce vitamins for us, specifically vitamin K. B vitamins? Okay, good.
Yeah, it's
Good.
in.
Vitamin K, vitamin B. And then we can get those vitamins, but it's all about absorbing water. And you know, if it moves through too fast, what are you gonna get? What happens if food moves too fast through your large intestines? You'll get diarrhea. Yeah. And if it moves too slowly, what are you gonna get? Constipation. And so if too much water, if you don't have enough water, your fecal material can become stuck there, right? So that if you're having trouble with constipation, you need to eat more what? Vegetable matter, roughage, that'll absorb that undigestible roughage, and vegetable and fruit is really gonna help you move it through your digestive system. Don't force it out. You could tear your rectum, or you could have a leaky rectum from forcing it. So you just go away, drink some juice, come back, try again later. And then you have a lot of bacteria, like, you know, a third of your dry weight of when you poo, if you poop on a paper plate and set it outside and let all the water evaporate out of it, a third of that could just be bacteria. And this is why it's really important to wash your hands, okay? So this chart, you don't need to know this chart because you don't have to memorize the enzymes anymore, but this kind of shows you the breakdown of all of that. This I would expect you to understand. Okay, you shouldn't need me at this point to explain this. So you have 4 test tubes. Slate, you take the odd ones. Blue, you take the even ones.
Okay, so just one, it's an egg white, protein, and just water, see if nothing happens. And then you have the egg white with the Pepsi water.
I think it was done with the enzyme and stuff.
Which helps with the digestion.
Oh, but it's Pepsi and hydrocolloids. Low pH.
Isn't that Pepsi water just the Pepsi glycan or whatever?
Okay, how do you feel about that? Do you need me to go over it? You good? Okay. All right. Then I cannot leave, even though this is not on your AP exam. It's important. Okay, this part's important. You need to eat healthy, good foods, good fuel for your system, right? And you need to have every day. You need to have some carbohydrates. You need to have proteins, right? You need to have your vegetables, dark leafy greens. You need to have fats every day in your diet. If you talk about there's fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins, those of you taking vitamins, that's fine. Our body doesn't always process the ones that we take. You just make really expensive urine, okay, when you spend a lot of money on vitamins. It's best if you get the vitamins you need through the what? Food you eat. Yeah, it's really important to go to the source on that. Fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. ADEC, you'll be as big as ADEC if you have too much fat. That's how I remember that, okay? Fat-soluble vitamins, you can store for long amounts of time. If it's not one of those 4 fat solubles, that means it's what? Water soluble. You can't store it and you'll pee it out. That's why you need to replenish. You have learned your history lessons, and why would they call sailors limeys? Or what were they afraid of on ships that would travel? Scurvy. Scurvy, okay? And because that's why they would have to eat limes or citrus in order to get what they needed. So you too need to do that as well. ACE, these are antioxidants by tennis players. ACE, antioxidants, protecting your cells. You need vitamins A, C, and E. Is A fat or water soluble? Fat. Okay, so that one, vitamin A, you don't have to worry, you could store that. C, so you need to replenish that one. And then E, fat soluble. So you can store that one. So vitamin C is important. That's why you have, drink like maybe orange juice or eat an orange. And then really important, you need to drink water. Right? Water, 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 water. Okay, and I cannot leave digestion because this is a real concern for me here in school because I have seen this play out in lives, especially this one. there's one girl in particular that comes to mind that I knew that it was a student of mine, beautiful, beautiful dancer, and then went down this path of anorexia and in the hospital and in and out, and watching literally her body change, systems shutting down. She had this beautiful, thick, long red hair, and it literally just would fall out. And watching her try to function in school and eventually get hospitalized, and it did not end well for her in the very end. And it was, you can't tell somebody who has an eating disorder, eat more, okay? Because it's in here, right? So, but if you have a friend, and probably all of us know somebody, they'll flirt with it. They'll just flirt with it a little bit, they'll still go down. I have a best friend who was in high school terrible, in college especially, and she still has trouble with her digestive system today because of that eating disorder and how she destroyed it in her youth. And so if you have somebody who's flirting with that, you keep an eye on them. You eat meals with them. You watch them eat. You talk about it. Don't hide it. Talk about it and your concern and your care for them. And along this line as well. There's usually, it could be genetic. You could be predisposed to being heavy. You could be predisposed to being skinny. But if you're not, if you're eating too much or too little, it affects you. It affects your endocrine system when you're living like this. I mean, there are men, I hate to gross you out, but there are men who will generate breast milk because they're overweight and they have issues with their hormonal regulation, okay? And that's not their biggest problem, but I'm sure that's one of them. Using your digestive system improperly, there you have structures that perform a function. So when you use it the wrong way, it can cause devastating effects. And usually, when people see themselves in these pictures, there's this whole body dysmorphia, thing that goes on, and they see themselves as much heavier than they actually are. If you know somebody like that, you are not being a friend by keeping quiet. You need to bring it to their attention. You need to talk to somebody. You can talk to a counselor. You can talk about it with me, but see somebody about that because it is a serious issue. And it used to be thought of that it was only with girls, but it is really on the rise still amongst boys as well. So keep your eyes open. Tell your bio buddy, you don't have to tell your bio buddy, I have an eating disorder, but tell your bio buddy, do you know somebody or have you ever suspected somebody of an eating disorder? Tell your bio buddy.
Good buddy, man.
I eat too much, but I have no problem.
I ate a whole pizza yesterday. Domino's.
And that's it for AP Biology and the digestive system.